This Bluey episode is hated by parents. In fact, they dislike it so much that they basically pretend it doesn't exist when they're rewatching the show. The episode in question is called Movies, where the Healer family go to the theater together. Out of curiosity, I wondered why everyone was so angry at this innocent cartoon. I mean, we're still talking about Bluey, aren't we? What could parents possibly hate about this cute, adorable family? 5 seconds into the episode, and I already see a major problem. Bingo immediately barges into the theater, making a lot of noise. She starts messing with the props, etc.
Bingo!
Sorry.
And even rips off a hand. Like, is she actively trying to get her parents kicked out and fined? I can imagine anyone watching this at home sees this as their worst nightmare. They probably don't want their own child to act like this when they're going out. Remember, when we consume content, it influences us. And to make matters worse, Bingo's own dad barely says a word. Bingo literally barges into the theater, destroys the property, and his response is just, bingo. Like, seriously, dude, you're gonna have a bigger problem on your hand if that's your way of discipline. Throughout the episode, you immediately realize that Bluey is afraid of scary things. She doesn't want to see a movie that would have things that would scare her. That's understandable, especially at her age. And that's going to be a big factor in this episode, age and debates of whether kids should be allowed into the theater. But there's more to this debate later, and I'll address this soon. However, as we go into the theater, we're back to the terrible behavior from Bingo. She barges in and spills popcorn all over the floor. In fact, before she breaks in, she actually spilled the first set of popcorn, forcing her dad to buy her another batch. So, once they finally settle in and get comfortable, the stresses of the episode begin. Bingo just doesn't stop. She's yapping throughout the entire movie. This is so annoying. Okay, picture this. You guys know when you're at a theater and someone just starts scrolling on their phone endlessly while the movie is playing? I wish someone would explain to them that we're in a pitch dark theater trying to focus on the screen ahead, but the person next to you has this beaming gleam of light. And at this point, you're just like, dude, hello? Are we watching the movie or are you just trying to ruin the experience for everyone here? I mean, you might as well just go to the bathroom or get out of here. You paid for the ticket, why aren't you watching the movie? You paid for overpriced popcorn and drinks, and yet you're on your phone half the time the movie is playing. So for those of you who want to relate to the stresses in this episode, that's probably one of the concerns. However, this is a different type of distraction, and it only gets worse as the episode goes on. Funny enough, when the family actually goes back for another batch of popcorn mid-movie, you're starting to see why parents might dislike this episode. There's just no end to Bingo's shenanigans and people are tired of it. One could chalk this behavior up to the kids just being too young to go into the theater. Many Redditors voiced their concerns online, stating that, "I taught my child how to be quiet in a movie theater by taking him to kids' movies from about 3 years old. If he was disruptive, we left. And that only had to happen once. Just because you're at a family movie doesn't mean it's chill to let your kids disrupt everyone else's experience." And this is the exact problem I mentioned earlier in the video. Bandit was a little too lax and a little too slow with his punishments. In fact, I'm still trying to look for the punishments in the first place. Simply repeating your kid's name doesn't really sound like there's any authority or consequence there. Like, seriously, what is that supposed to do? Anyways, it's crazy how when they re-enter the theater and Bluey just yaps away and the family makes a mess, none of the characters look annoyed or angry. They're not even looking at them like, guys, can you shut up? I mean, if they wanted to make this episode realistic, I think the animators should have added in some, rolling of the eyes, eyebrow movements. But no, everyone's just sitting there and enjoying this mess. So in this episode, there's a couple plots going on at the same time. One of them is with Bluey questioning who she is and comparing herself to the movie and why the movie wants her to be herself.
Why does Chuba Duba tell Chunky to be yourself?
Bingo!
And then you got another plot with Bingo just being a menace. Anyways, this is where the episode goes from bad behavior to atrocious behavior. They go bananas in this episode. No pun intended for the movie they're watching, by the way.
What? Bingo! Where's that kid?
But Bandit, Bingo, and Bluey lose their freaking minds. They're literally running in front of the theater screen. Now let's all calm down, okay? Remember, this is a cartoon, mate. During my research, I actually found out that there's something called special screenings for people with little kids, knowing full well that they can't sit in a theater for an hour and a half, okay? This is a thing that happens. I didn't know about this until today. Perhaps in this episode, they were at one of those theaters. Does this excuse the behavior? Not really, but it lessens the blow, okay? But I don't know if everyone who watched this episode would know that. I mean, I didn't know that. They're probably just assuming that they never want their kids to act like this when they go out, get the remote, and switch that episode immediately off. Because that's what's happening. People just don't like it. So what do you think about this episode? Is all the hate they're getting warranted? Is it fair? Is this just a cartoon and are people overreacting? Or do you believe that the things we watch influences us, whether that's negative or positive? You may be asking, Kolobi, what are your thoughts on this? Well, personally, I think it takes a lot to get anyone riled up at a show. To see people so passionate about skipping this episode or feeling strongly about it just lets me know how good of a cartoon and or how popular it is. But on reflection, it actually seems like people are looking to Bluey as some kind of advice on how to parent. Like, I'm starting to realize that some parents are watching this show to babysit their kids, and I don't know if that's the right approach. I mean, if you're tripping over something happening out of the ordinary in a cartoon, you need to really sit down and think about why you feel that way. I mean, a lot of crap has happened in SpongeBob and countless other cartoons out of the ordinary, and I don't see people complaining to this degree. So it goes back to my point. I feel like people are treating Bluey like it's Arthur or something, some kind of educational show that they show you in the library or at school or something like that, using it to babysit their children. And then when we get an episode that's ridiculous, it's completely wacky. They're doing things out of the norm. They're doing things that doesn't give this positive lesson at the end. People are like, oh, well, you can't do that. I need to skip this episode. I need to write a bad review. Look, I get it. The way they acted was ridiculous. Bingo was acting ridiculous, but it's a cartoon. What people should be doing instead is showing this as a learning experience. Say, hey, don't act like this. If you're watching this episode and you're talking to a child about this episode, tell them to do the opposite of the episode. You don't have to skip the episode entirely, because if you skip the episode, you don't get to see this crazy, amazing dance, okay? You're gonna be missing out on Bluey. Anytime an episode comes out that's not the best or something you disagree with, it doesn't necessarily mean that we have to skip it. Maybe we need to examine the episode and really figure out, okay, what is the message here? Should there even be a message in a cartoon every single episode in the first place as well? You know, it doesn't always have to be some kind of message at the end of the day. You know, when I'm watching Bluey, you know, sometimes when we watch a cartoon, sometimes you actually want to turn off your brain and just kind of consume the content. It doesn't always have to be, let's get out our pen and paper, write down the lesson, you know, give it a check mark. You know, I think we all need to, you know, chillax a little bit. I get it though. I see why people are upset, but still, you know, we got to give them some grace. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. Curious to hear what you guys got to say down below. Have a safe rest of your day.